With the United States of America actively engaged in a naval blockade of Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz, like that is our military strategy right now as a country at war. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth decided that now would be a great time to fire the Secretary of the Navy, a person named John Phelan. 3 people familiar with internal discussions tell the Wall Street Journal that Phelan's firing comes after a rocky tenure under Hegseth, which included tension over Phelan's close relationship with Donald Trump. Quote, Phelan regularly chats with Trump at his Mar-a-Lago club just down the street from his own Florida home, and told lawmakers last year that he exchanges texts with the president about shipbuilding in the middle of the night, as one does. It is just the latest removal of a senior military officer by Pete Hegseth, and it comes after he forced out the Army's top uniformed officer, General Randy George. The New York Times is reporting that the timing of the firing could have consequences. Quote, the tumult could make it harder for the Navy to replenish its stock of Tomahawk missiles and high-end air defense systems, which have been in heavy use in Iran. Phelan has been replaced by Hung Cao, who has been a key ally of Pete Hegseth inside the Pentagon. I want to bring in Politico Pentagon reporter Paul McCleary. Also joining us, retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson. Let me start with you, Paul, and your reporting on this.
Yeah, Phelan came into the Pentagon and as Secretary of the Navy without really any history with the military or particularly the Navy, right? So, he came in kind of blind, and the Navy is hard. I mean, they've been struggling with shipbuilding and ship maintenance for 2 decades at least now, right? So coming into a really difficult job at a really difficult time with no prior history or real knowledge of it he started off behind the 8 ball. And, Phelan kind of bragging that he was exchanging texts with Trump about shipbuilding in the middle of the night might have been part of his undoing here, right? Because he's the one who pushed this idea of this Trump-class battleship, which could cost as much as $17 billion per ship. And it's not something that the DOD, Pete Hegseth, or the Deputy Secretary, Steve Feinberg, want. I mean, it's this huge ship, costs a lot of money, hundreds of sailors aboard, when the Navy wants to go the opposite way, have smaller, more smaller ships with fewer sailors and go more uncrewed systems. So they were really unhappy, I know, at the Pentagon over this Trump-class battleship, and I think that was part of it. And he was just unable to move the needle on shipbuilding, which is a tall task for anybody.
Was there any role that he played in the war?
He's not in the chain of command. I mean, that would be more the CNO, the Chief Naval Officer, and the Central Command commanders. I mean, he's the job of the Secretary is the train and equip mission really for the Navy. So he's not in the chain of command. Could have an effect somewhat, but he's not really moving ships around the map in the Situation Room.
Okay, well, that makes me feel a little better about the guy that replaces him. Let me show you him. This is Hung Cao.
There's a place in Monterey, California called Lovers Point.
Yeah.
The original name was Lovers of Christ Point, but now it's become, they took out the Christ, it's Lovers Point, and it's really, Monterey is a very dark place now.
Yeah.
A lot of witchcraft and
Right.
the Wiccan community has really taken over there. And we can't let that happen in Virginia. Virginia is, I mean, especially down in Roanoke, they're God-loving
Right.
people.
Right.
Richmond, too, and Virginia Beach, and we just need to mobilize Christians across the nation. I mean,
Paul, have you been to Monterey, California? I grew up a little bit north of there, and Monterey, California is not a dark place. There is no history of witchcraft and Wiccan community there. I mean, this guy sounds insane.
Yeah, I think he aligns more with Pete Hegseth's vision of what the Pentagon and what the military should be, right? This kind of Christian-based organization in a lot of ways. I mean, that's what he ran on when he ran for Congress. He hasn't, obviously, as you saw in that clip, he hasn't shied away from that at all. So when it comes to culture issues, culture war issues, I think Hung Cao is probably more aligned with Hegseth than Phelan would ever have been.
General Anderson, what is your assessment of the caliber of people being appointed to leadership positions inside the Pentagon?
Well, Paul is spot on, Nicole. I mean, these people are totally unqualified, and John Phelan is another poster child of that. I mean, he's just a sycophant that sucked up the Donald Trump a buddy of his from Mar-a-Lago. He had absolutely no knowledge of the Navy, no experience, no service in the military. And so I shed absolutely no tears for his departure. Hegseth, as Paul points out, was dissatisfied with the pace of Navy shipbuilding, which is very, very difficult process, heavily bureaucratic and slow and painful. And it doesn't happen overnight. And I would agree, there's been absolutely no operational impact. He's out of the chain of command. So is the CNO. This fight is being fought by Admiral Cooper and CENTCOM. And so rest assured that the war will continue to be as poorly run now as it was before he was fired. But I think that the firing points out, Nicole, that there's a cancer of leadership growing within the Pentagon. I mean, Hegseth, he wants to surround himself with these Christian yes men. He doesn't want any critical thinking. He doesn't want any opposing views. He doesn't want any diversity. I mean, he famously struck off some black and female officers from the promotion list. He's fired a litany of black and female personnel and senior leaders within the military. And I think that this whole thing points out that in World War I, there was an expression, you got lions being led by donkeys. And that's exactly what's going on right now. Our enemies know this. This is a national security risk at the highest level, and Americans need to wake up.